Peace and prosperity. CBS poll shows President Trump wins convincingly on both measures. The last refuge. This should not come as a big surprise. After all, President Donald Trump has an actual record of accomplishment on the two metrics that CBS, YouGov are polling: peace and prosperity. Time equals 400 ms. greater than. According to the CBS, YouGov poll, American voters view President Donald Trump as the better presidential candidate to create peace globally and specifically make their financial future more positive. Both of these points are exceptionally important. CBS, with views of things in America continuing to be bad and now hitting their most negative marks of the year, one might expect an incumbent president to trail in a pre-election poll, as Joe Biden does in this one. But that's only half the story. The other half is that Donald Trump holds distinct advantages in his own right when voters look forward. More voters think they'd be better off financially if Trump wins in 2024, and more voters think it's Trump who can keep the U.S. out of a war, if he wins. Link. We do not have to guess which candidate has the right path. We have President Trump's actual economic policy results to look at and see how the expansion of the economy was creating the type of growth that would sustain Social Security and Medicare. This is MAGAnomics at work. We know it works, because we have the results to cite. Right before the pandemic would hit a few months later. Despite 2 years of doomsayer predictions from Wall Street's professional punditry, all of them saying Trump's 2017 steel and aluminum tariffs on China, Canada and the EU would create massive inflation, it just wasn't happening. Overall year-over-year inflation was hovering around 1.7%. Table ABLS. Yup, that was our inflation rate. The rate in the latter half of 2019 was firmed up with less month-over-month fluctuation, and the rate basically remained consistent. See below. The U.S. economy was on a smooth glide path, strong, stable, and Main Street was growing with MAGAnomics at work. A couple of important points. First, unleashing the energy sector to drive down overall costs to consumers and industry outputs was a key part of President Trump's America First MAGAnomic initiative. Lower energy prices help the worker economy, middle class and average American more than any other sector. Which brings us to the second important point. Notice how food prices had very low year-over-year inflation, 0.5%. That is a combination of two key issues: low energy costs, and the fracturing of Big Ag hold on the farm production and the export dynamic. Time equals 400 ms. greater than BLS. The index for food at home declined for the third month in a row, falling 0.2%. The index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs decreased 0.7% in August as the index for eggs fell 2.6%. The index for fruits and vegetables, which rose in July, fell 0.5% in August. The index for fresh fruits declined 1.4%, but the index for fresh vegetables rose 0.4%. The index for cereals and bakery products fell 0.3% in August after rising 0.3% in July. Link. For the previous 20 years food prices had been increasingly controlled by Big Ag, and not by normal supply and demand. The commodity market became a controlled market. U.S. food outputs, farm production, was controlled and exported to keep the U.S. consumer paying optimal prices. President Trump's trade reset was disrupting this process. As farm products were less exported, the cost of the food in our supermarket became reconnected to a more normal supply and demand cycle. Food prices dropped and our pantry costs were lowered. The Commerce Department then announced that retail sales climbed by 0.4% in August 2019, twice as high as the 0.2% analysts had predicted. The result highlighted retail sales strength of more than 4% year-over-year. These excellent results came on the heels of blowout data in July, when households boosted purchases of cars and clothing. The better-than-expected numbers stemmed largely from a 1.8% jump in spending vehicles. Online sales, meanwhile, also continued to climb, rising 1.6%. That's similar to July 2019, when Amazon held its 2-day blowout Prime Day sale. Link. Time equals 400 ms. greater than. Despite the efforts to remove and impeach President Trump, it did not look like middle-class America was overly concerned about the noise coming from the pundits. Likely that's because blue-collar wages were higher, Main Street inflation was lower, and overall consumer confidence was strong. Yes, MAGAnomics was working. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Additionally, remember all those MSM hours and newspaper column inches where the professional financial pundits were claiming Trump's tariffs were going to cause massive increases in prices of consumer goods? This was a really interesting dynamic that no one in the professional punditry would dare explain. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Donald Trump's tariffs were targeted to specific sectors of imported products. Steel, aluminum, and a host of smaller sectors etc. However, when the EU and China respond by devaluing their currency, that approach hit all products imported, not just the tariff goods, because the EU and China were driving up the value of the dollar. Everything we were importing became cheaper. Not just imports from Europe and China, but actually imports from everywhere. All imports were entering the US at substantially lower prices. This meant when we imported products, we were also importing deflation. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. This price result is exactly the opposite of what the economic experts and Wall Street pundits predicted back in 2017 and 2018 when they were pushing the rapid price increase narrative. Because all the export-dependent economies were reacting with such urgency to retain their access to the US market, aggregate import prices were actually lower than they were when the Trump tariffs began. Prices for imports from China edged down 0.1% in August following decreases of 0.2% in both July and June. Import prices from China have not advanced on a monthly basis since ticking up 0.1% in May 2018. The price index for imports from China fell 1.6% for the year ended in August. Import prices from the European Union fell 0.2% in August and 0.3% over the past 12 months. Page number 4 BLS report. PDF. BLS press release. So yes, we know President Trump can save Social Security and Medicare by expanding the economy with his America First economic policy. We do not need to guess if it is possible or listen to pundits theorize about his approach being some random catchphrase, disconnected from reality. Yes folks, we have the receipts. This was MAGAnomics at work, and this is entirely what created the middle-class MAGA coalition. No other Republican candidate has this economic policy in their outlook because all other candidates are purchased by the Wall Street multinationals. America First MAGAnomics is unique to President Trump because he is the only one independent enough to implement them.